Today we are going to be talking about what is a good parent, how do you become one, and how do you become a better parent. All these things we're going to look at, and the reason is because parents have a significant influence on children. And so the way we do parenting is going to impact the next generation significantly. So there are some truths about parenting. One is parenting is an important role, and most parents and most adults agree with this statement. Who spends more time with their kids than parents most of the time? Hardly anyone. And who sees their kids almost every day for a long period of time? Parents. And so they have an important role. Parenting is also a learning process, and that is an important thing to note because a lot of young parents come in there with the expectation that they are going to do everything perfectly and they're not going to have to learn from their mistakes. No, you are going to learn from your mistakes because parenting is a learning process, and you learn what works and what doesn't work, and you just learn how to become a better parent. Parenting requires commitment. And one way to illustrate that is, okay, whenever you are having a tough time with your child, you can't just say, all right, I'm leaving, you fend for yourself. No, because you have to be committed to that child because he needs the things that you have. And you can't just say, I'm done with you because you don't feel like parenting. And parents greatly influence kids. And we've already discussed about that, but it is true. So, what is the biggest fear of parents? The biggest fear of parents is that the world will bombard them with negative messages. And I can understand why. Think about all the different messages that are sent to kids every day through media, through their friends, everything. And yes, the parents should fear that kids are going to be negatively influenced because in a lot of ways there's not much ways to prevent that from happening. And one of the desires of parents is for their kids to end up being good citizens, and sometimes that can be a challenge with the negative influences. And I think the main fear of parents is not the fear of being negatively influenced. It's the fear of the unknown, the fear of who is my child going to become? Is my child going to be a successful person? Is he going to end up rebelling and going against everything that I've taught him? What is he going to do? And I think those are valid concerns and should not be taken lightly. But that is the biggest fear of parents, is the fear of the unknown, and that is why we worry so much. So, what is a good parent? First off, there is no such thing as a good parent. People say all the time that you need to do this to be a good parent. Well, the reality is that every parent has flaws. So there is no good parent. And every parent has areas that they can improve on because none of us have become the perfect parent. And so we should be humble enough to admit that, hey, there are some things that we may not have right and that we need to adjust these things. But there are some good traits that parents can have, and we will discuss those on the next slide. So, some traits of good parents, what are they? One of them is encouraging and giving guidance to children. One of the things that I think some people overlook is how good it is for a parent to encourage their children. I think a lot of times parents just want to accept the good as just, well, that's the way he's supposed to do it, or he's supposed to do that, and so why should I encourage him by telling him good job? When in reality, that is the right thing to do. And parents also need to give guidance because in this world, there are some tough decisions that kids have to make in this life. And it would be very hard if they didn't have someone like their parents by their sides helping them throughout the process. Good parents allow the child to make some personal decisions. And the reason why this is important is because when children have the liberty to make their own personal decisions, they get to experiment with what is a good decision or a bad decision, and they can take ownership of their decision making. Another thing that good parents do is encourage children to do tasks for themselves. And a lot of parents call these tasks chores, and they get their kids to do those chores. Good parents implement good values. They teach their children what are the right ways of behaving and what are the right ways of living. Some more traits of good parents are one who does not shame. In other words, one that doesn't constantly bash the child of his failures or the things that he's not able to accomplish. And he's not constantly ridiculing him for the things that he's not able to do. The trait of a good parent is to not do these things. And a good parent also consistently shows love on a daily basis. And this is huge because a lot of people just go throughout their daily lives and don't even think about parent giving their child a feeling that they're loved because there's so much other things that need to be done there, whether it's work or just doing things around the house. So it's understandable why parents sometimes don't take the time to think, all right, have I made my child feel loved today? But that is a good trait for a parent to have. A good parent admits his or her own mistakes, and this is key. Now, some people might push back and say, I don't want to admit that I've made a mistake because then my child's going to say, well, I don't have to listen to him because he makes mistakes just like me. When in reality, whenever you admit that you made a mistake to your child, that is actually showing them how to behave. And it's showing them that there are times whenever you do need to admit your mistakes. And so you're modeling that behavior for them, and that can be extremely helpful for them in the future. A good parent does not force the child to be involved in activities that they don't want to be involved in. And I have some experience with this because whenever I was growing up, I did not want to play any sports at all. I had no interest. And my parents tried to get me involved in things, but I was not interested whatsoever. My parents did not push me me to play anything. They just said, "Okay, we're not going to put you in there." And so fast forward to my ninth grade year, that was the first time that I actually ever played a real sport, and I was happy to play it because I didn't feel like I was forced to play it. I was playing it because I really enjoyed it, and it was not something where I thought to myself, I must do this or my parents will not like me. A good parent gets to know their child, and of course, this may seem self-evident, but I know of many parents who have told me that they went through the 18 years of the lives of their child and they don't know a thing about that child. And so it is important to have this mindset of, I want to get to know my child. I want to put in the time so that I can know my child and know what they like, what's unique about them, what do they actually want to do with their lives. And that is a very critical thing to consider. There are two essential qualities of a good parent. One is consistency, and the other is commitment. So, why is consistency important? It helps the child to be structured because if you're consistent about something, it gives the child a mindset of, okay, this is the direction I'm supposed to go, this is the way I'm supposed to behave. And it demonstrates the importance of the values that you're teaching them. If someone is constantly punishing a child for doing something, the child will think it's important for them to follow the rules, and it decreases the resistance of the child in most cases whenever you're consistent about the rules that you enforce, because the child will know, all right, whenever I do this, I know what's coming. And so consistency is a very important trait to have as a parent. And why is commitment important? Commitment is important because it shows genuine care for the child. And why does commitment show genuine care for the child? It's because, remember what we talked about? We talked about how you can't just say, I'm done with you, I'm moving on. No, you have to commit to that child, and that act of remaining there for the child shows care for that child. And commitment is important because it gives the child the attention that they need. And why is it giving them the attention that they need? Well, when you're committed to something, you're also giving it attention and you're also making it a priority in your life. For example, when you're committed to doing something, you're going to prioritize it and you're going to give it the attention that it needs in order to do whatever you're wanting it to do. Another reason why showing commitment is important is because it models a value for your child to implement. Being committed is a great thing, and it's a good thing for your child to see commitment in you so that they can then go out and be committed citizens as well. The child also feels that they can trust the parent. And think about it this way. How many times have you heard someone, maybe it's a family reunion or something like that, they say, "Oh yeah, I'll be there," and then they don't show up? Okay, so the next time, whenever you invite them and they say, "Oh yeah, we're coming," how confident are you that they are going to actually show up? Probably not as confident because you don't trust that person because of their lack of commitment in the past. And so, whenever you do show commitment to the child, they learn that they can trust you as a parent. So, the goals of most parents is to motivate their children to become independent. In other words, motivate the children to get out of the house and to live their own lives and to not have to depend on their parents to do things for them. And another goal for the parent is to prepare them so that their kids can be happy to experience the pleasures of life and to be wealthy, which is experiencing the money, having enough money to survive, and to be healthy. And that is to not go through any diseases or sickness. That's a goal for most parents. And they want their children to live life without much financial struggle. They don't want their kids to be in debt or to be poor. They want their kids to prosper. And they also want their kids to be moral and law-abiding citizens. What goals should Christian parents have? They should have the goal of training and equipping their children in the biblical worldview. And this brings me to a point that it's not solely the pastor's job to educate kids on what the Bible teaches. The parents are very important in giving their child the framework that the Bible establishes throughout. Another goal of Christian parents should be to equip their children to evangelize to others. And I almost never hear this as one of the goals of Christian parents. But it is very important because if the kids that we have are the next generation and they are the next people to be the light of the world, shouldn't we teach them how to share Jesus with others? That would be very important. Another goal of Christian parents should be to model Christian behavior to the kids. And that goes back to being a good example for the kids so that they in turn implement what you're telling them to practice. And also to teach kids about the Bible, which we've already discussed. So there are many things that influence parents. For example, parenting books, peers that they have, their friends, family, the whether it be the family itself or the in-laws. And then the media definitely tells people how to parent. And then just the personal preferences of the parents themselves. They just want to do it a certain way, and that's the way they want to do it. So what is the ultimate guide for parenting? The answer may surprise you, but it's the Bible. And the reason why is because it's absolute truth and it equips believers for good works. And it is the ultimate guide for how we live our lives. So why wouldn't we trust this as our guide for parenting? Some of the Bible references for parenting include Proverbs 22:6, which states, "To train up a child in the way he should go, even when he is old, he will not depart from it." Ephesians 6:4, where it says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord." Proverbs 13:24, "Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him." And Proverbs 19:18, "Discipline your son, for there is hope." So the biblical commands for parenting are: instruct children in the truth, do not provoke children to anger, and discipline children. In conclusion, parenting is a huge responsibility, and you have a great influence on your kids. There is no such thing as a good parent because there is no such thing as a perfect parent. Every parent has ways that they can improve and things that they can learn. The goal of the Christian parent is to guide the child in the ways of God. And the Bible is a sufficient source for parenting. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something.